also number 2, Frank.
Yeah. Okay, we're good to go. Okay. I would like to call the meeting to order for October 5th. So welcome council, staff, and general public. Just before we get going, we decided as a council to go back to Zoom meetings temporarily, following the guidelines from the provincial government and the health unit in respect of not having gatherings of more than your own family. So we decided to go back to Zoom until we can get these numbers back down. So welcome everyone. I'd call the meeting to order. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that the council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be open at 7:01 p.m. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. I can ask everyone to please stand for the playing of our national anthem. Crystal, if you would please. Thank you, and we apologize for those technical difficulties in regards to the playing of our national anthem. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that the council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda. Any additions to the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Yes, so we've been asked to pull item 2, resolution on COVID-19 funding for capital purchases. Item 5, the resolution requesting changes to municipal election, and item 7, the notice regarding 2019 earnings and sharing, letter update to members from the Community School Alliance. So that'll be item 1, 2, and 3 in other business, or 2, 3, and 4 in other business, pardon me.
Excuse me, Madam Clerk, I requested number 5, which is the SD&G Safe Restart funding. I did not want item number 4.
Sorry about that. I said 5 and I read 4, didn't I? Pardon.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
And I'll pull out number 1 resolution from the AODA website, compliance extension request, just for more information at a later date. Okay, is there any other additions from members of council? Not seeing none, so the motion would be as amended. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Not seeing none. Approval of the minutes of September 21st. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of South Glengarry held on September 21st, 2020, including the closed session, be adopted as circulated. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, we're going to move to number 6, presentation and delegations, route optimization study, KPMG, Bruce Peaver, Jamie Cameron, and Hazan Jan. Sorry if I didn't say that correctly.
Good evening, Your Worship. I just have to get my video up and going here. Hi, my name is Bruce Peaver. I'm a partner with KPMG, and I'm pleased to be presenting tonight with my team of Jamie Cameron and Hassan Yan on the snow route optimization study that we just recently completed for you this past month. Before I get going, I just want to mention that it was a pleasure working for the township. I don't think council or yourself are aware that I grew up in Cornwall, and I used to fish with the late Nick Kineb and my dad on the St. Lawrence. Caught untold amounts of Lancaster perch way back when. So it's great to be. Hello, Your Worship. Did you catch that? Because everything froze up on us.
I caught the part of you living in Cornwall and doing some fishing and so on, but I didn't get anything after that.
Okay, so I'm prepared tonight to have Jamie Cameron present a brief summary of our final report on the route optimization study. Jamie, do you want to take it away? Oh, Jamie.
There we go. Yes. Thank you, Bruce.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. So as Bruce mentioned, I'm going to go through a summary version of the report that was posted to the agenda for tonight's council meeting. And please ask questions as we go. As you can see, this is the table of contents for the full report. I'm going to go through a summary of that here. Brief overview of what we did part of the project, what we looked at as far as an environmental scan, how we came up with the route optimization model that we used for all of this analysis, a base scenario, and then the results of our optimization analysis based on 2 scenarios, and then some of the risks and challenges that we highlighted that came out of our review. So brief context, obviously the township, like a number of different municipalities, is always looking to balance the goal of providing the best possible value to the public within the fiscal realities, but also ensuring that the level of services are what residents expect. And with the town moving forward with the new facility, this is an opportunity to examine how moving some of the routes or consolidating the snowplow routes to a new facility, what kind of impact that would have on responsiveness and service levels, and whether some optimization might be able to help, what impact that might have on the services. One thing I think it's worth pointing out before we start, and that is, like a number of county and towns that we've worked with across Ontario and elsewhere, Township currently provides a level of service to citizens that exceeds the provincial minimum maintenance standards. And that's something that we see frequently, which essentially creates an extra tier of expectations based on the existing, or as we sometimes call it, the target level of service. So the objectives that we had coming into this review, one was a high-level review of the existing patrol and plow route service levels, what material loads are involved there, and what the driving times were. Review of the workload and equipment that supports that, as well as materials. We then aim to model the existing patrol and plow routes to determine what the service levels, resultant service levels, and then look at some recommendations for optimizing the plow routes to see what type of efficiencies there might be. And again, this is in potentially reducing the amount of time spent, in particular in events that go on for winter events that go on for a long period of time. It actually means getting more service out of a regular shift. And then finally, once once there's some agreement on what these potential routes are, and if they're implemented, then we'll be uploading those routes. I think it's important to point out that as we went through this, what was really important to us was to ensure we were engaging as much with the people that are involved in the service. This was not just a desktop exercise. We went through a lot of our assumptions, validated them, had to build in some additional assumptions based on actual conditions that are met on the roads. And then lastly, the way that we built this model was that it's something that could be handed over to you for future use, scenario planning in the future. And we've developed this Excel-based tool to enable you to do that on a go-forward basis. Lastly, although we're KPMG, this is not an audit. It's a review to build on some successes and identify some opportunities just to help prolong or continue the continuous improvement process. Brief summary of the work plan. We came on board back in June, July to look at the existing routes. Through the summer months, we took in all of the existing data, previous reports that had been procured by the town. We also looked at the GIS data and had a number of workshops with staff to answer some of our questions and validate what we were modeling. That led us to a draft report earlier in September that we presented to staff, incorporated their recommendations, and here we are today. And if there's additional comments, we'll incorporate those into a final report before we're complete. So first, a little bit of a background here. Just as a reminder, we've got currently 10 routes total. 9 routes are typically, or 8 routes are typically done with a tandem. Sometimes one of them with a grader, another route done with a smaller truck. Right now, the equipment is all being filled with material from that's either been dropped at North Lancaster or from your newer facility in Airport Road. Right now, 7 of those routes are coming out of Williamstown, 3 from North Lancaster. And all told, your service is providing about 780 lane kilometers across the town. And you can see the routes on the screen there. So when we were looking at these 10 routes, we wanted to develop a current state, first of all, to get a good understanding, ensure that our model was accurately depicting the services that you're actually seeing today. So the key metrics that we were looking at as we did this was the current service levels. How long is it taking the response time to winter events? The total solving distance per kilometers for each of the routes, what that means for total run times, and then also allocations for all of those things going on that's not actually plowing or salting. So that could include dead hauling time, dead heading time, material refills that are required, turnarounds, and also allocations if you're plow up or plow down. In some cases, crossing over other roads, plows are moving, but they're not actually plowing. Then we looked at what your average coverage speed is per kilometers for each of those. And then finally, as I noted at the beginning, one of the important pieces here is not necessarily reducing the amount of time that plows out there, but maximizing the number of passes that you may get on a route in a particular shift, 14 hours being the shift length that we use there as a maximum. And that could mean, for example, that you're doing one route twice and you're actually able to get some additional time in to perhaps go to a more high-risk area to manage to fit another pass in within a certain shift. So we didn't look at this just in isolation of what was going on now. We also reviewed the prior studies that had been done, primarily the one done on the municipal garage location. It was created or done in 2018. The reason we looked at this one is there had been, it was the one previous instance of route time calculations being completed. So we wanted to look at that as a comparator to what we were calculating from ground up based on the route maps and based on the information we're getting from services. And finally, we actually compared that to the GPS information off of the trucks in order to calibrate our model so that we were confident that what we were using as a baseline reflected what was actually happening out in the field. Now that study that I talked about obviously looked at the two locations or two options. One was a centrally located garage. Second one was to use two different facilities. And we used these two scenarios in the analysis that we did as well. Now that study concluded operating out of two garages. And so we, in our scenarios, looked at what the difference would be if things were run out of airport as opposed to the current facilities. I'll go into the scenarios a little bit once I get to them. And so for each of these scenarios, we calculated what the current run times would be for each route, what the run times would be for each route if you were changing the garages. So the first one is essentially take all of the Williamstown routes and put them down out of airport. And then what's the incremental time added on just by running those exact same routes out of the new location. So essentially extra dead halt time, or if the new route is close to a road that was already being passed, it may be a similar time. We then did a second one that had everything run out of airport to see what the differences would be there. And again, that was done at first just taking all of the existing routes and running them out of airport. And then for both of those location scenarios, we then did some optimization to determine essentially to try to bring down our route times to reduce the variability between what the services are right now. And so because of the granularity of the information that we were able to get from you and from the county, we were essentially able to pick different road segments off of different routes and trade them back and forth to see whether some rebalancing might be able to help offset some of the time changes that may occur if you were to change your change where the services run out of. So here's the summary of the results that we have. And as I mentioned, we've got a base scenario, and then we've got scenario 1A and 1B, and 2A and 2B. Now, base scenario is what the service is looking like right now. And you can see all of the routes that go across the top there. We've got Route 4, Route 7, and Route 8 are currently run out of North Lancaster. And Route 9 and 10 are the ones that are currently operated with a smaller truck and a grader. So currently, if you're to add up the runtime of all of the routes together to deal with a single event, you're looking at about 51 hours. Scenario 1 is essentially running all of the routes out of a new airport road location. And 1A is with no optimization. So you can see there that overall across all the routes, you're looking at about a 2.5 hour increase. But you can see that there's a more significant impact on the routes that are run out of North Lancaster. So Route 7 and Route 8 going up from 4.5 and 5 hours up to 6 and just over 6. Again, that's no change, just running the existing routes right down to the new location. 1B involves doing some optimization, as we talked about. So that's moving some of the different road segments around. And you can see with some of the optimization there, you can bring that total runtime down to about 47 hours. So less than's currently being done there. The biggest impact on this one is you can see that we've managed to bring the differences for Route 7 and 8 down pretty close to their current services. And that has to do with rebalancing the routes that are run in the northeast quadrant. Route 2, scenario 2A and 2B, these are assuming that you maintain service out of North Lancaster right now. And so you can see there, just taking again the existing routes and putting them out of the new location. This is mostly the savings that you'll see largely just from going from Williamstown down to Airport Road. So you're going from 51 hours now to approximately 50. So very little time difference, largely because most of the existing routes pass somewhere near that new location. 2B again is further optimization. And as you can see there, bring it down to about 46 hours to cover all of the existing routes. Again, that's trading some road segments back and forth. Another piece I should note for these optimizations is we also assumed that you'd be using the 3-axle tandem snow plows across all of the routes, even though currently you've got some smaller equipment on each of them. And talk with staff, that was it was deemed that that should go in as the optimized version. So as you can see, overall, the majority of these scenarios will see an improvement over the existing routes. The highest time savings would be optimization while maintaining the 2 facilities, although moving to 1 facility can get very close to the existing times that you're dealing with right now. And again, our analysis was focused on the time savings and the efficiency of deploying the routes, not necessarily the dollars per kilometer spent. So that's another factor that comes in, obviously, to consolidating to 1 site. And that brings me to the risks and challenges here. So some of the pros and cons of each of these different scenarios. So obviously, consolidated operations, there's a number of advantages. It's the highest total optimized time efficiencies. If you take that across all of the routes and assume that you're still using that 14-hour run, it means that you can get an extra 3.5 passes distributed throughout across. There are advantages to managing and deploying all the trucks out of a single location as well. And with optimization of the routes, particularly the routes that are currently deployed out of North Lancaster, at least from what we calculated, there is a minimal difference in run times. So you'll see this at your residents will see the same levels of service in those locations. And I say that that's modeled. The reason that we checked our model against the GPS information was to make sure that what we were modeling was reflective of what was actually going on. So we had some extra factors in there for drifting snow, those types of things. So we're relatively, from that perspective, confident in what these scenario models would look like. There's also potentially some cost savings out of ceasing operations out of North Lancaster with facility maintenance, utilities, and operations. But again, that's a building that has some other uses out of it, so there may not be much there. Challenges out of options 1A and 1B. Consolidating or running all of the routes out of airport would probably require 10 bays for all of the plows, and then potentially some extras for maintenance or parking patrol trucks if you wanted to park them inside, as a number of other jurisdictions we work with do, which potentially would require an expansion to the current plans for that facility. And then secondly, going back to that SDG report on the North Lancaster site, so the benefits of consolidating to a facility, there wouldn't necessarily be any valuable reason for making that surplus. On 2A and 2B from the split operations, again, you can still achieve a significant time efficiency and still achieve a good number of extra passes. It also means that you're not seeing any change in service level responsiveness, particularly to that northeast quadrant. And it's also important, it allows you to maintain an operational footprint in North Lancaster. There's obviously some small incremental costs for operating or maintaining 2 facilities. That was not a part of the analysis we did in this report. And then there would still be obviously material transport required from at the airport yard site. Now the last piece, and I touched on this at the beginning because it's relatively important, but again, all of this modeling was done assuming that you're maintaining the existing service levels, the target or the expected service levels of the community. As I said, these are above and beyond the minimum standards required by the Ministry of Transportation. So it would have to, the only other additional opportunity for optimization would be moving that level of service closer to the minimum maintenance standards. But as I said, that's typically not something that we've seen in a number of locations. So that's my summary of the report. If there are any particular questions, we'd be happy to get into them.
Maybe if I can, just a comment and a question. Our residents are certainly not looking for any reduction in the existing service levels, that's for sure. So that's something we will not look at. But just a question in regards to if we moved to the one facility, which is on Airport Road, how do you see the efficiency by running out of Airport Road to get to North Lancaster, to plow that section of the northern east part of our municipality, plus running back and forth for salt and so on? How did you come up with those numbers, or how do you see that being a savings?
So as you can see, if I go back to this slide, through the optimization, essentially, if you're to look at a map going from the northeast down across to the southwest, in order to balance those route times to make sure that you're still getting up to the northeast section, some of the road sections were distributed to more of the routes in the southwest. So as you can see in this row here, there are some times increases, although slight, to some of the routes that are closer to the airport road site.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you point out which slide you're pointing to? Because you're not showing your screen right now. So if you could just give us the page.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. I will.
Sorry to interrupt.
I didn't realize that it dropped. My apologies. Slide 23. So if we're going across here, we can see particularly route 4, 5, 6. We've got an increase in some of these times over the base scenario.
But are you saying those increased times are in the southwest corner of the municipality or the northeast section?
No, there's a slight increase in the southwest to accommodate. Again, it's a rebalancing. Although netting.
Sorry, my question, I guess, if trucks are leaving out of the North Lancaster garage, doing their routes in the northwest east corner of the municipality.
Yes.
We take them out of there and put them on the Airport Road.
Yes.
How can we save time by getting them from Airport Road back to their routes, back in North Lancaster or the northeast corner, and then by coming back and forth picking up salt?
If I could jump in there, Jamie, on that, one of the things that was looked at by KPMG was, and we've talked about this at the county level, was joint use of some of the material storage facilities. So back in an earlier slide, Jamie showed the locations of the county's patrol yards, and some of these scenarios, certainly the ones in the northeast quadrant, north central, would be reloading out of the Green Valley Patrol and not returning to Airport Road. So that was something we've discussed. We also, on a reciprocal level, have had discussions with the counties about the ability for them to access material out of Airport Road that would probably provide some efficiencies in their operations as well.
Hey, that's fair, Johan. I appreciate that. But I guess my other question was more, if we're leaving out of one garage, how are we saving time to get to the routes in the north part of the municipality? Leaving North Lancaster, the trucks are right there. They're en route within minutes. Leaving Airport Road, they're 15 minutes away, 20 minutes away. I'm just not sure how we're going to save time to get them out there if we're not leaving earlier.
No, you are correct in that sense. Obviously, they will not be starting necessarily in this top quadrant, if everyone can see my screen.
Yep.
What we were saying is essentially we're shifting some of these routes that are on the boundaries here to the routes further west. So the routes that are coming out of airport are doing a small amount up here. So they're still able to complete all of the routes within the same time period, with a trickle down to some of the other routes to enable for that extra deadheading time.
Okay, thank you. And I believe Councillor Lang had a question.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. Just to add to that point that our mayor was just talking about, when reading your longer presentation, you do have mention in there about saving a little bit of time by using 401. I'm not sure whether that's going to work or not. I guess Ewan would be better to answer that. But I think our trucks are leaving quite full with salt in the morning. Whether they're going to want to be at highway speeds, our trucks aren't running with netting or tarps over the top, whether we're gonna be able to fill them as full. I'm not sure, but I would be a little concerned that maybe they're gonna wanna stick to county and township roads, maybe when they're going to the north. But I do see where you can save some time by some of the routes that are closer to the airport are gonna be able to do their route a little closer or a little quicker. I did have a couple other questions. Route number 1, to me, route number 1 is doing quite a few of our major roads. In the scenario that we have now, and in both of the scenarios that both of the optimizations that you guys put together. And I'm wondering if that's a smart thing or not. As far as I'm concerned, the Glen Road, Ray Road, Town, Purcell, and Paragon are all fairly major routes that need to be cleaned fairly early in the morning to get people moving. A lot of them going towards Cornwall. It's more of our populated area down in that corner. I'm wondering why we don't split that up a little bit so that we don't have one plow operator doing, 3 or 4 major roads. The other major road I see that we need to get opened early is South Service Road. And I think that's fine the way it is, but that was just a question I had when looking at the routes, to see if there was any others.
My apologies there. I dropped, my connection dropped. So I'm not sure if I heard that, one of the concerns, I heard that Route 1 is where you have some of your major roads, but I wasn't able to catch the part after that.
Yeah, and just it seems that Route 1 is doing almost all major roads, and just wondering why we don't split that up a little bit so that if he has a 5-hour turnaround to do it once, some of our major roads aren't getting done for that first 5 hours. Whether maybe somebody on Route 3 or something should be doing a few of those. That's just I'm not saying that what we should do, but it was just something I noticed that one route is doing a lot of our major roads.
Well, I think that's what on that point, I think that's one of the reasons that we developed this as a Microsoft Excel based model was that some of that additional scenario planning would be very easy to change some of those route assignments and see what the implications are. So that allows a lot of quick opportunity to assess those options going forward. Okay.
I'm not interested. I'll also agree that I'm not interested in dropping our service. I think our residents are used to higher service. They're also used to paying higher taxes, and they don't want to continue with the higher taxes and lower service. So we have to keep it up. I'd like to see some of our major routes get plowed an extra time or two. I think that's about it, other than one little point. Maybe it might just be a typo too. I think it's on page 15 of your report. You've got down the grader at 70 kilometers an hour. I'm pretty sure he moves at about 46, 47 kilometers an hour, likely top speed. I don't think he can make it to 70.
No, I think it's definitely below 70, so we'll take that. Thank you.
So Jamie, the roads that he was talking about was more Glen Road, Town, Ray Road, Purcell Road. Did I miss any there, Martin?
Maybe even Paragon, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty much all of Route 1.
All of Route 1. Yep. That's our major roads. That's the heaviest population in the municipality. And that's like Martin said, where all the traffic goes into the Cornwall area. So on a morning basis. So that's the roads that we need cleaned earlier, probably than most of them. But we had questions from Councillor Jaworski and then Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jamie, for your presentation. I have a few questions. I'm just going to add to the mayor's comment there at the beginning about maintaining service levels to the northeast quadrant. I mean, I'm sure as you've studied our routes, we do have, a little development up there, Lancaster Heights, and that's, a lot of folks there are commuters. And I think it'd be very important to ensure that, they do get plowed no later than what they're being plowed today. So I think, although I understand what you're saying about rebalancing, I think the total is just as important as the details as well on when that area gets plowed. 2 assumptions that, please correct me if I've misunderstood, but I think they bear understanding why we went with them. Is you said that this scenario assumed we have tandem trucks doing all the plowing. And my understanding is for South Lancaster, we have to use a smaller vehicle. And as well on Route 10, I guess the previous Route 10 and even under optimization, that a lot of those roads, there are gravel roads in there as well. Was that taken into account, like that the grader, what route specifically the grader is doing, and that it is going slower, like Councillor Lang just pointed out? And lastly, if you could just elaborate slightly on what are these specific expectations that what we're exceeding in terms of the provincial minimum. Thank you.
My apology, my connection cut out a little bit there again. I think the first question was about the Northeast, and you talked about service out there. The second one, I believe, had to do with the provincial minimum standards.
That was the third one. The second one is the two assumptions, the issue of tandem trucks
Yes.
being used everywhere. Whereas in South Lancaster, my understanding is a tandem truck won't fit, and that we have a number of roads that are also gravel that they're not using tandems on those. Those are using the grader. How was that taken into account?
Yeah, I see Ewan's jumped on, but we've as a part of that, we discussed with staff whether those assumptions. So Ewan, you can speak more to that.
I'll just speak to question 2, just for clarification. We do have 9 tandems on routes 1 through 8 and on route 10. The grader now is used, and this was kind of following to the types of winters we're getting at one point when and this is what KPMG did with their historical data. They were viewing the GIS data when we had a grader dedicated to a run that was Cedar Grove, Fallowfield, Maple, Proctor, Beaupre, Frog Hollow. And as you know, almost all of those roads now are surface treated. So we are using a tandem for those runs. The grader is used to deal with ice blading and major press back whenever we have ice storms. So it's not a primary deployment for the grader. It's only used as a follow-up for different road conditions on granular. So we have 9 runs that are being done with a tandem currently, and with the modeling that was done by KPMG included tandems in that model as far as their speeds, plow down, plow up, and material. The route in Lancaster, Route 8, is being done by a 4-ton truck with a smaller hopper, and that was modeled with the smaller truck, I believe, Jamie. We had that discussion at one of our recent workshops. So the final modeling was done with 9 tandems and with the 1 smaller truck for Lancaster, South Lancaster. And that was my response to question 2.
Okay, so just to confirm, you're saying the grader route is not necessarily depicted in these optimized routes?
That's correct. The grader is dedicated to all granular roads in the township as needed, and it'll do the ice blading. We also have, I know on the tandems, many of you know, we have rear ice blades on the tandems that have served us very well in those freezing rain events that we receive on the granular road.
Okay, thank you. So my third question was about how we exceed provincial minimums.
Yeah, so for the provincial minimums, have to look at, I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but essentially we were looking at the minimum clearing times based on the road classifications were significantly longer than the time it takes you to do an individual route now. So theoretically speaking, for provincial standards, it could take twice as long to actually clear some of the roads that you're clearing at this point in time. It depends on different class roads and which route it's on, but generally speaking, it was within that factor.
Okay, well, as has been said, our residents don't want a reduction in service.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Just for example, many of our roads are what are considered class 5 roads, rural roads with less than 400 vehicles per day. The deployment of resources for snow accumulation on a class 5 road is 100 centimeters, 100 millimeters, sorry, 10 centimeters. And the deployment is, I believe it's either 12 or 14 hours to address that road condition after the storm has ended. So as you know, we deploy probably at 5 centimeters And because of our weather patterns, we can't leave snow on the roads to pack and freeze. So we deploy at a lower accumulation, and we also deploy our resources in advance of what would be the minimum maintenance standard for response.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, you're essentially covering what is the equivalent of the ministry's version of a class 2, which would be 5 centimeters and 6 hours response time. So you're essentially hitting your road network at the equivalent of a class 2.
Okay, anything further, Councillor Jaworski? Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your presentation, Jamie. It was actually, I was very impressed with the scope that came out of this. I had a few concerns with a few routes, and I don't have to echo that we don't want lower service and things like that. I'd actually like to see 2 more trucks on the road if it was possible. But looking at route number 3, I just I picked up on something when you had talked about working strictly out of Airport Road. If we were to move all operations from Airport Road, your comment had been that we had maybe extended clearing time on the southeast half of the municipality. So maybe say from Lancaster, the east side of Lancaster, say those routes got longer and maybe thicker to accommodate for having to dispatch trucks such a long distance to the far top corner of the municipality. I guess my only concern there was even looking, for example, at Route 3, we have us clearing, and by the looks of it, we would start on Airport Road, do Airport Road, the north side, Somerstown Station Main Road, and then we're going to Baynesville, Lancaster, which the east side of our municipality, most of the people in Baynesville are traveling to, would be traveling to Montreal for work or elsewhere. I would say some of that would be my only concern is, for the most part, the east half or the east south quadrant, and with a few other exceptions on the east side to the north, those people are traveling maybe to Montreal on a daily basis. So that was one of my concerns, but I mean, this is something we can address, I guess, looking on, I guess, providing comments back. I would like to see, and I don't think there's a way to do that without adding a truck, but to increase our response time to the east end. The east end of the municipality, for the most part, I think a lot of those people are traveling. From my experience and talking with people out there, has been that most of them are traveling to Montreal and Vaudreuil in the morning. That would be, I guess, my comments on this part.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Are you looking to receive comments, I guess, over the next week or 2 or a couple of weeks in respect to bringing back another full report in November? Is that what you're hoping for?
I think I could probably leave that to Ewan for comment there for timelines.
Okay, so what we'll do is, if there's any other comments or questions from members of council, we'll pass them on to Ewan, and he'll get them back to Jamie and his colleagues. I'll go to Deputy Mayor Warden, then to you, Ewan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be long. I just wanted to say that it was a very thorough report, and it's surprising by doing the optimization the way you've done it. And I mean, we can go back and forth on how the routes are laid out, that there's only an hour difference between keeping North Lancaster Garage open and running everything out of Airport Road. That's pretty impressive. I mean, we'll definitely have further discussions about it, but I'm pretty impressed with the route optimization, and it was very interesting. So thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Ewan?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll echo the Deputy Mayor Warden's comments. It was a pleasure working with the KPMG team on this project. We had a team of administrative support, and Bruce and Jamie and Hassan were extremely thorough with their review. We had numerous meetings over the summer months. Obviously, with the challenges of COVID, meeting virtually presented some challenges, but the effort of the KPMG team has resulted in what I feel, and I believe supported by Mr. Mills, the CAO, and the other parties that were reviewing it. We've received a document that we're very pleased with, and very professionally done and very thorough. So I want to thank them for their efforts. And I am very pleased with what we've received. I look forward to receiving council's comments. And as Jamie suggested, the format that we're getting this in is one that we can tweak as we move forward by doing our own case studies. We have a model now. It's an Excel spreadsheet model, so we can make adjustments based on operational experience. So very pleased with what we've got, and thank you to the KPMG team. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, did you have a further comment if you want?
No, Your Worship. I just want to thank the township for allowing us to serve them, and we look forward to Ewan's comments in the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, gentlemen. We appreciate your presentation and all the hard work you put into this. And if there's any further comments or questions, we will make sure we get them to Ewan, and Ewan can pass them off to you, you three gentlemen, at a later date.
Great. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thanks very much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to staff reports. The Williamstown crosswalk. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. This is a staff report to seek council's input on whether there might be some interest in developing another automated lit crosswalk in Williamstown between the public school and the high school. As was commented on earlier, the crosswalk in Lancaster has received some favorable feedback, and I believe it's certainly a great safety feature there. I believe, given the circumstances that we have in Williamstown with the schools and a fair bit of activity from school to school and school to arena, I believe this is something that we could consider. There is a painted crosswalk at that site currently, so the permission from the counties under their policy has been granted that we wouldn't have to request that we upgrade the crosswalk. And I've gone through just giving some details as to what the details or what the crosswalk warrants would be. And essentially it would be the same layout as we have in Lancaster in this circumstance. My understanding that CAO, Mr. Mills, has been in communications with the school boards about their participation in this. We're working through that. But I guess before we get too far along, we would need to know if council is supportive of us continuing with this initiative, and also understanding that there is a cost to this of approximately $10,000. This isn't a line budget in 2020, so we would have to look at funding it through either reserves or potential surpluses and other activities.
Okay, thanks, Ewan. I'm going to go to our CAO, Mr. Mills, and then Councillor Lang, and then Deputy Mayor Warden.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, I've spent a lot of time in the last few weeks at the arena and in Williamstown. There's definitely a lot more traffic. We have students going between Williamstown Public and Charland, but also parents coming in and out. There's more vehicle traffic because of a number of students not wanting to travel on the bus. So they're either driving their own car or their parents' cars, or they're getting driven to work by, in some cases, extended family or friends who may not be as familiar with the area and the speed. I did have an opportunity to speak to Peter Bosch, manager of construction with the Upper Canada District School Board. So once we've completed this evening with your approval, then I'll reach back out to him, or Mr. McDonald will, just to maybe plant a little bit of a seed to Williamstown Public School has been approved for a $3 million expansion. And this is maybe a first in a number of things with to consider a partnership between the two schools and the arena and the village, or the town of Lancaster, Williamstown. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang, I believe you were first, then Deputy Mayor Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Yes, I agree. Going through the village, we're in the village pretty well every day, and it is busier than normal. And it's always been quite busy, you know, during school time. I've actually had somebody even asking about a crosswalk, whether it's lights or even just painted at the corner where Larry Roseland's feed store is. The sidewalk is on one side of the road as you approach it, and you have to cross to get on the sidewalk. There's quite a few kids walking to school now. I think maybe a few more than normal because of COVID maybe. I definitely think this is something that would be a benefit to us. And I know we're close to the end of the year and maybe we could put in next year's budget, but I would like to see it done this year. Just follow us. We're busy now and the kids are out, and there's unbelievable number of cars in there every day. And it's almost like they're waiting in line. They're parking on the Greer Road to line up to have a chance to go in and drop their kids off. And it's busy. So it would be great if we could put something there. Thanks.
I agree. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I concur with what Councillor Lang said. Years ago, when I attended Williamstown Public, yes, it's been around that long, the 7 and 8s were the only students on a regular basis that crossed the road, say for special assemblies. Now, on a daily basis, sometimes it's grade 4 and 5s crossing the road. So I think this is imperative that we do that. And I would say it's modernization. And I think there may still be some funds available in that fund. And I think we should get it done before the frost hits, if at all possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for bringing this forward. Like my colleagues, I do think it's well warranted. And in addition to there being a lot of traffic during the day, also having a crosswalk with lights, I think would be a big benefit in the evening as well. Actually, when it gets quite dark, when it's quite dark, there's not that much street lighting in that area. And I find that's even when it's more dangerous, for when it comes to crossing. And that's often the time when there are special events, either at one side or the other. And folks are, sometimes parking on one side when it's full and crossing over to the event. So I think, it warrant, it's beneficial, not just to the schools, but to the community as well for community events. And to Councillor Lang's point, I do think we should think about what the crossing is like by the Roseland feed store, because it isn't very well marked, and there are more kids definitely walking now. That's a fact. So it's probably time to look at that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that staff report 141-2020 be received and the council direct administration to proceed with the installation of a level 2 type B crosswalk on ST&G 17 in Williamstown between the Williamstown Public School and the Charland High School. And that administration contact the Upper Canada District School Board to ask for financial support for this crosswalk. You heard the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried, and I'm sure they'll take all your other comments into consideration when they're talking to the school board at that time. Thank you. And we'll move to municipal signage policy. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our last council meeting, we presented to you a draft policy and bylaw for your consideration. I haven't received any requested changes from council, but I would like to point out a change that we did make in between the last meeting and this meeting. Following a review of the draft bylaw and signage policy from our economic development and tourism coordinator, it was suggested that we strengthen or revise the wording for the community role, as she felt that it left some opportunity for the community members to think that they could still create their own sign, as opposed to just focusing on the center component of the approved sign design that that council had approved. So we just clarified that wording to make sure it was very clear, and then added a few adjectives here and there throughout the report. Outside of that, it should read very similarly, and I'm hoping that council is happy with it and we'll be able to approve it this evening so we can move forward with implementing the policy.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you for making that change. I think it makes a lot of sense. Is there any other comments or questions from members of council? Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just wanted to say thank you to Ms. Haley. I know there was a lot of work and it's been a time-consuming thing to put together between this and the design. And I really appreciate the time that's been into it, as I was myself and Deputy Mayor Warden were really pushing on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 142-2020 be received and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry approves bylaw 57-2020, being a bylaw to approve a municipal signage policy for the Township of South Glengarry, be read a third and final time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 5th day of October 2020. You heard the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thanks very much, Mrs. Haley. Okay, other business, notice of motion, support of municipality of Tweed's resolution on cannabis production. That was Sam, Councillor McDonnell, you brought up that the last time.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I thought this was a worthy one of supporting, and I wanted to bring it back to council. For the most part, a lot of these buildings that are being converted into more or less under the radar grow ops. We have a few I know already in our municipality. They're targeting really older agriculture infrastructure, which we have a lot of in the municipality, as well as old abandoned schools and things such as that. And often there's even been some in residential areas in South Stormont beside us. I know at St. Andrews. I thought this was worthy of maybe reporting. It'd be nice that if these businesses, or I guess operations, are going to be going into business, be nice to know at the municipalities level and just be made aware of them so that we can keep an eye on them should they become an issue. Just looking, I guess, for some support on this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's phone calls coming in on not on a regular basis, but on different occasions in regards to asking why there's cannabis growing operations in their areas, which we're not familiar with, or we didn't even know anything about. So I think more input from the government to the municipalities would make a lot of sense. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I wasn't in agreement with everything that was in the first resolution from Tweed, but I think what we've put in ours, I'm fully in agreement with that. I'm not, they were going a little too far, I thought, wanting, to be, policed or regulated almost the same as pharmacies and so forth. But I think as a township, we definitely need to know about these things and where they are, and just, have some heads up and make sure that the zoning is proper for where they are. If Councillor McDonnell is looking for a seconder, I'd be happy to second it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Warden.
I was just going to say the same as Councillor Lang. I would second that. I don't think, as you said, I don't think we need to go as far as what the previous one did, but I like the wording on this one. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang, whereas the Township of South Glengarry received a resolution from the municipality of Tweed, attached hereto, calling for action by the federal and provincial governments to review licensing and distribution practices for medical cannabis growers. And whereas the Township of South Glengarry shares the concerns of the municipality of Tweed regarding licensing being issued to the properties not in compliance with local zoning bylaws, and urges Health Canada to consult with municipal stakeholders prior to license being issued. Now therefore be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry supports the resolution from the municipality of Tweed and directs the clerk to forward a motion to the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Canada, the Minister of Health, MP Eric Duncan, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you, Councillor McDonnell. Okay, we'll go into the ones that were pulled out. So number one was a resolution from AODA. The only thing I asked Madam Clerk is if we can get more information for that extension request from the town of Amherstburg. Is that what's called? Amherstburg?
Amherstburg, yeah.
Amherstburg.
I'll bring something back to our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And we'll move to number two, resolution COVID-19 funding for capital purchases, Eastern Ontario Warrants Caucus, Deputy Mayor Warden.
Sorry, yeah, I'd like to speak to item number 2 and 5 as they are basically the same thing.
Yep, go ahead.
At a recent county council meeting, county council passed a resolution to have the provincial government, allow us to utilize some of these funds for capital projects. As you are aware, some municipalities are in a lot worse shape than we are, and thankfully that we're not in this position, but we should support other municipalities who are going to be impacted a lot more with COVID. So I'm asking that these two be brought back for support.
Okay, we will do that. Thank you. And number 7 is letter update to members Community School Alliance. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take the opportunity to highlight the letter to council because just as a reminder, I'm the representative from South Glengarry to the Community Schools Alliance. I'm also a member of the executive. It's a group of municipal elected leaders across Ontario who are advocating for the importance of schools, of children being educated in their communities. So just a quick update that, we are still an active group, and we're explaining in the letter that since August 2019, we've had 11 meetings of the executive, which are actually quite productive meetings where we're advancing several issues, and as well, we've met with the Minister of Education or his parliamentary assistant 3 times since then. Because of the pandemic and the fact that AMO was done virtually, the Community Schools Alliance, we canceled our AGM and our election. So everyone's term was extended 1 year. So my term has been extended 1 year on the executive. And also we had accumulated through the fees of the municipalities. We had accumulated a bit of money in our reserves where we were planning on doing it, using it for some research on demonstrating the value of schools and what happens to communities when they close. And we haven't spent any of that money yet, although we do have some very active, we're getting very close to initiating a new research project. However, because we have this money accumulated and we haven't had to spend it yet, we've waived the membership fees for all the current members of the Alliance. So the municipality's membership's been extended to August 2021 at no cost. I just wanted to mention that. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to talk to anyone. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. Any comments or questions? Okay, thank you. We have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accepts the items presented as the agenda, on the agenda as committee reports and for information purposes only. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to unfinished business. Just gotta find it here. So the first on the is the docks on township property, Mr. McDonald.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There has been a follow-up letter sent September 24th with a firm date for the residents that we're working with on those properties that were declared surplus for those residents to confirm the sale and or take other actions as was directed by council.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Was there 7 properties or 8?
There was 8 in total.
And we have 3 submitted a proposal.
3 are now confirmed. 1 has declined.
Yes.
And we still have 4 to finalize.
So there's 3. Okay. Okay, thank you. And for fire protection ponds, I guess we're going to be talking about that a little bit later.
That's correct.
Thank you. And municipal servicing from the city of Cornwall, ongoing.
Yeah, the steering committee has been fairly active. We are meeting again on October 22nd. We are working through the different options and reviewing the costs. I wish to thank Mayor Prevost and Councillor Lang for their assistance on that steering committee and involvement. We also have Mr. Mills, Mr. McDonald, and Ms. Haley on that committee, along with our Director of Operations, Water and Wastewater, Dylan Sagan. So we are diligently working through the numbers and looking at the options. On October 22nd, our intention is to kind of nail down and just narrow the options to what would be reasonable for the municipality. And at that time, a report will be brought back to council from the consultant to present the findings after these discussions.
Okay, thank you. And private roads development document?
Nothing further on that at this time, Mr. Mayor.
And the Williamstown Garage and Fire Hall?
The presentation on the road optimization, the draft was this evening. So pending comments from council over the next couple of weeks and just the refinement of that document. we can then start to look at what the next steps are.
Okay, thank you. And number 6, LED streetlights for Glen Walter.
Mr. Mills and I received, Mr. Mills received an email from Cornwall Electric late in the day today, which he shared with me. We will be reviewing that email, and there are some of the information we had requested is within the context of that email. So hopefully we'll either be able to provide a report back to council at the next meeting or at the latest at the first meeting in November.
Okay, thank you. I see no questions. Oh, Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm glad to hear that we got an email from the city of Cornwall, or from Cornwall Electric on this one. I'm just getting a little frustrated here since I think I was a little bored this week, so I went back and looked how long it's been since we approved that rate increase. It was back in June, and we figured a month from then we'd have something. So this is getting a little bit over the top. So if there's nothing in that letter or that email from today, or no commitment, I'd say before the next council meeting, I'd like to put a motion on the table to stop paying the bill until we have an actual concrete plan, or at least with a timeline as to when these lights are going to be changed, because enough's enough. It's getting to be a bit of a joke. The people in Glen Walter are paying for these lights, and they're essentially getting overcharged for old infrastructure that should have been changed years ago. Municipalities, they need more time to come up with a list of assets they have in Glen Walter. I'll be happy to go out and count them in an afternoon for them.
Okay, thank you. So we will expect a little bit more discussion, I guess, at the next meeting in regards to the email that we received today. Okay, thank you. And we'll move to corporate services, review of water rates and water bill design. Mr. McDonald.
Yes, I've spoken to Marco, and we were planning for October 21st to 22nd to have meetings in our fire halls, have standing boards, let people in. In lieu of rising numbers, we might switch that to having a notice go out with their water bills with a link to a survey. We can use Microsoft Forms, because realistically, we don't really want people in our, like, we're trying to be open to the public administratively and recreationally, but still limit gatherings. So that the way we do it may change, but we're still going to solicit their opinion, and the bill will go out to everybody too. As for the water bill design, Deputy Mayor Warden had asked that we start that, so we're starting that process, and I'll get back to you with further results as we have them.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's nothing else on the outstanding services at this point, so we're going to move to our closed session. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that the council of the township of South Glengarry convene to closed session at 8:07 p.m. to discuss the following items under section 239 of the Municipal Act. A meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administration, tribunals affecting the municipality or local boards. Advised that is subject to a solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose of Staff Report 143-2020, Richmond Road Fire Protection Pond, Staff Report 144-2020, Midway Road Fire Protection Pond, and Staff Report 145-2020, the Official Plan Appeal. You heard the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We will go into closed session, and we will be back out to finalize the meeting sooner than later, we hope.